Let's see here. Good evening, everyone. We're just going to wait 1 or 2 minutes while everyone gets logged in, so make sure you can hear and see. And then I have enabled the chat, so do go ahead and introduce yourself and where you're listening in from tonight. If you like, you can chat amongst yourselves. All right. Wait just 1 more minute. I know how it is. It's like you're logging in and gotta make sure you can hear and see everything before we introduce our special guest tonight. All right, let's get started. Good evening and welcome to the Milwaukee Public Library Book Chat. My name is Beth and I'm one of the adult librarians at the Milwaukee Public Library East Branch. Joining me tonight is my awesome colleague Brittany, who is a librarian at Central. Thanks for being here, Brittany.
No problem.
Feel free to use the chat box to interact with each other and to share book recommendations as we go along. We are recording, so we'll invite everyone to just sit back and enjoy. Don't feel like you need to take notes. And we will send an email including a list of all the titles discussed today and a link to the recording on YouTube. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce our special guest this evening. I'm so thrilled to introduce you to Celestine Martin, who is a native of New Jersey. She writes whimsical and flirty paranormal romance that celebrates the beauty of everyday magic. She's inspired to write happily ever afters and happy for now endings, starring the people and places close to her heart. When she's not reading or writing, she enjoys organizing her massive sticker collection with her husband while spoiling their daughter in New York. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you're here tonight. How are you?
Hi, thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Beautiful. So while we get started, can you tell our listeners just a little bit more about yourself? I see you grew up in New Jersey, but now you live in New York.
I do. I'm a romance writer. I've been reading since I was little, but writing romance, I officially started writing romance when I started 19, started writing 19. And then actually I was like, I was gonna be a romance writer at 23. 23. I was just like, I'm gonna do it, gonna make it happen. And I just started devouring romance from an early age. Of course, like one of my first interactions with romance, I was in high school. There was a bookstore still open in Belmar, New Jersey, where you had a special where for $2 you could get 10 Harley Quinns, one of the little Harley Quinns, all
Hmm.
10 Harley Quinns, and I would just devour them. Like my room in high school was just filled with Harley Quinns. And so that's where I kind of got bitten up by the romance bug. And then discovered it again, put it down during my early, new adult years. And then I picked it up and graduate school, I rediscovered my love of romance with Jennifer Cruzy. Bet Me is a paperback I got at Goodwill. I bought it for my birthday because I was a broke graduate student. And I was like, oh my gosh, I want to write this. I want to write this kind of fun, flirty rom-com stories. And so I started reading and devouring them as much as possible. And that's it. Oh, I see someone else is also Jennifer Cruzy fan. Also Strange Bedfellows, if you haven't read it, and also The Cinderella Deal, classic. And Getting Rid of Bradley. That's your kind of like mystery. Yes.
I just read that this year, actually, because my really good friend Allie, who loves Jennifer Cruzy, was like, read that one. And I did. And I had so much fun reading that. It was great. The banter.
Oh, the banter is like, oh, I absolutely love it. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
that's a little bit about me. I love
That's
um,
it. And then we can take the slides down, Brittany, but just quick before we do, can you give everyone just a quick elevator pitch about your series, which starts with wishful thinking?
Oh, absolutely. The series is called Elemental Love because it has to do with witches who, who have a connection to the elements. Basically, my elevator pitch for the story would be Black witches living in a New Jersey seaside town, living their best lives, loving, casting spells, being charming, and being loved up by the supernatural men who love them. That is kind of the elevator pitch. With
Beautiful.
yeah.
All right, we can take that slide down now for now. And then we'll bring that back up when we are doing our book recommendations. I won't make you go in cold turkey. I like having my book covers too. Um, I love the setting of this series so much. What kind of gave you that inspiration besides, living being from New Jersey to set your story there?
Um, Honestly, when I first started writing my series in 2016, I was missing my hometown. I was really missing my hometown. And also, I just wanted to kind of write kind of a love letter to my hometown and also what I loved about my Jersey Shore town. So that's where I got the idea. Because in the original draft, there's only two sisters, weren't three. But then I decided to add a third one. And also, my mom is one of three sisters. So I added that detail in. So I wanted to do that. It's kind of just a love letter to all the myths and mythology and like superstition that I grew up with. And so,
Mhm.
and also, I mean, just living at the Jersey Shore for like the first 20 some odd years of my life makes an impression because when I was there, I was like, oh, I'm going to go to New York, become a famous writer and everything. And then I end up writing about my hometown. And so irony is not lost on me, but I'm from Jersey. Everyone in my neighborhood's like, "You're not from here." I'm like, "No, I'm not from Jersey." So I was just inspired by missing my hometown and wanting to write about my hometown. So that's where the inspiration for it.
So, this series is the first I know you for. It's your debut series, but what did you start out writing? I know most writers have like their secret, drawer of like little things that they've written over the years. Have you always been a writer, or is it something you've dabbled in?
Oh,
Even just
oh no, I've always been a writer. What the things I've dabbled in? Oh my gosh, fantasy, a lot of fantasy. Like when I was a kid, I still love Labyrinth. God bless David Bowie and Jim Henson. I love Labyrinth. I've always been a big fan of fantasy. Like, anything with dragons. Had a big dragon streak before.
Mhm.
As a dragon princesses rescuing their kingdom and all that good jazz. That was one. And of course, my contemporary series, which is basically like this woman who hates wearing high heels but loves to eat cheese. That's my idea of a contemporary series, right? Me too. Just like
Yeah,
you don't want to see me in high heels. It's like a golden retriever trying to walk.
like
Just wobble wobble. Like, oh no, that's terrible. So, but I've always loved paranormal romance. I always love paranormal romance. I always love writing paranormal romance. Just like, ooh, she has magical powers. Ooh. So that's kind of been my jam. So yeah, there's a couple of trunk novels in there that are definitely like, huh, these cannot see the light of day ever. So there's that.
but hey, that was part of, the work to get to where you are today. I have a drawer like that with like school papers. It's like we'll keep them, but we don't look at them.
No, 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 don't look at them. This is like if I don't see them, they don't exist.
Mhm. Oh my goodness. So, magical creatures, clearly these are witches, and why witches specifically this time?
Oh my gosh. Well, I would say I grew up in a very esoteric household, like crystals and charms, a lot of incense, and a lot of just like doing things for good luck and superstition. So that's where I think also hearing the myths and stories that were passed down from my family and from my family members. And so I was like, I thought to myself, so what if we're witches? If we were secretly witches and we have all these powers, and so that's where I got the idea for my witches, and especially with Black witches, because we have
Mhm.
a lot of Southern folklore. Because my my family immigrated from, well, migrated. They migrated from the South to the tri-state area.
Hmm.
So they, they carried with them their stories and, their mythology and all these beliefs. And those were passed down to me. And I did more research at the Library of Congress, which I love. I absolutely love the Library of Congress. I went there in 2019. And I mean, I got to look at Zora Neale Hurston's original papers. Yes. It was like I had to take a moment and just like give a moment of thanks.
I just got like chills just hearing
Yeah.
that, so I can't even imagine.
Anthropology work is amazing because in graduate school, I discovered her paper about hoodoo and folklore in the South. And so I was like, well, if I ever get to the Library of Congress, I'd love to see her WPA works. And so I got to see that. And I mean, it's just rich with stories that she collected, especially in Florida. When she went to Florida,
Mm.
she picked up that folklore, and then her going into that area and picking up and hand typewritten on onion paper. Very, oh yes, it was a moment. It was a moment. I was loving it. And so I know. And so I was like, oh, I've got to write more about this. And so I added that folklore into it. And I made photocopies with the gracious permission of the librarians. We're like, please be careful. You can make a scan and you can do this in pencils. I was like, yes, I'll follow all the rules.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. So I absolutely, that's where I got like the inspiration from all that. So family, and then also me being just kind of curious about, traditions of folklore.
You led right into one of my questions. I was just going to ask you about your research. I was funny enough, just a week and a half ago, I went to Library of Congress just for fun because I was visiting a friend and I got my Library of Congress card, which anyone can get if you're a citizen of the United States. You just sign some papers and they give you your card. So, did you do your research in that big, beautiful rotunda room with the desks?
I did that in the rotunda room, and then I had to go over to the papers where I had to
Mm.
find the papers and get the request, and they gave me like this huge cart of her papers. And so I had to go over and do that. But my library card just expired. I was like, no, I have an excuse to go back.
Gotta go back.
I have to go back. I always have to go back. Oh, I love doing research. I went to a research university, so like research is my
Mhm.
jam. I love being able to go and research. And I mean, the nice thing about living in the city is that you have, New York Public Library and you have the Brooklyn Public Library, and they're wonderful libraries. And so I research books. I, rent them. If I like them, then I get them from thrift books. And
Mhm.
I absolutely are like, okay, let me go ahead and like find out this, because I know for my next book series, possible book series, I've been doing a lot of research and just like, okay, kind of wool gathering. So I
Mhm.
always like I have at least 3 library cards on me at any given point. Lots of pen, paper. I always have a notebook in my purse for any ideas, or if I'm like, oh, I have to search that up. And I always like to like get lost.
Mhm.
Pinterest. Pinterest is wonderful. I love story sparks. So I like to get story sparks when I get them. So that's research. Research is just like immersing myself in something, finding out if I like it enough to write about it, and then going like, okay, well, maybe next time, and then putting it on the shelf. My bookshelf is a mess, as you can see here.
It looks very organized to me. I don't
I
know about you, Brittany, but my home library is very messy.
As a librarian, I'm ashamed to look at mines. During my move, I got rid of a lot, and I'm like, don't look.
We save the organizing for work. That's kind of how I look at it. I come home and it's like, it's fine. It's a vibe.
I understand that. Like, I get that. I understand it because it's just like, oh gosh, there's some like, ooh, look, this looks pretty, and then you get like other shelf. You're like, oh, I didn't clean up the other shelf because there's so many books, but they're needed. But yeah, I love
Mm.
research. Researching is awesome.
Was there any like really awesome little tidbit that you'd want to share that maybe didn't quite make it into the books themselves, or
Yeah.
anything recently that was really exciting to you?
Oh my gosh, there's so much. I couldn't even start. I was
Oops.
just like, No, because I was just like, I got inspired to one of the inspirations a book I got, which I credit. If I ever meet the writer, I want to shake their hand. There's a book called The Jersey Shore from Rutgers University Press, and it
Mm.
talks about the history of just the Jersey Shore from like the geological standpoint, from the Lenape people who were there, who settled the area, and then you have history all the way to the Jersey from Stronger Than the Storm era, Hurricane Sandy era. So that's always good. So I mean, I wrote literally the entire history of Freya Grove using that book as kind of like my touchstone, thinking about like what do Jersey Shore towns have in common and their little tidbits. So you guys missed out on a whole history lesson of Freya Grove because I wanted to write it because it's like, oh, it's so cool. But then
Hmm.
also like, people want to read 3 pages of the history of Freya Grove. So that's one thing. So you guys missed out on that. I have
Okay.
it, but
You
you
have
missed
it. It
out.
exists. It's canon.
It is canon all the way.
Oh,
So that's one of the little tidbits that you guys missed. And it's like, and also the Caraways, how the Caraways got there, who are their ancestors. Like I book 3, we get a little explanation. We get to know their names, but you missed out on the whole family tree in book 1. So there's that.
I would like to do a quick interruption and read something for you. Okay, so congratulations, Niecy. So proud of you. Love, Aunt Carol.
Oh.
Thank you, Aunt
Hi, Aunt
Carol.
Carol.
It was too cute to pass up.
And
Yes.
that is okay. My aunt is extremely proud of me and I love her dearly. Thank you, Aunt Carol.
We're all saying hello. Where's Aunt Carol located?
She should be in the Bronx now.
Okay. Very good.
You'll probably correct me.
Welcome. Anyone else hailing from anywhere other than New York or Milwaukee? Let us know. I always like to know where you're listening in from in the chat. Let's see. Oop, good. And yeah, Brittany was so kind to remind everyone too in the chat, you can put your direct questions to Celestine in the Q&A box and we will have some time at the end to go through those. So that'll be great. Oh, hi, Carol. I'm in Maryland, Upper Marlboro.
Oh, she said, oh, okay. I got confused. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yep,
No, because
different.
she's a mover. She's a mover and shake.
Mover,
It's out.
love to see it. Um, I just really loved how the hero in this book was a merman, merperson. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you developed his character? Because he's just so great.
Research. There's a
Yep.
book by, I think, Scott
Alex.
Alexander, Mermaids, because my husband got that for me for a birthday gift.
Mhm.
He gave me because he knows how much I love mermaids. I've loved mermaids since Splash, Come Through, Tom Hanks, and Daryl Hannah. I love mermaids. I've always loved mermaid lore. And of course, living in a seaside town, you get a lot of mermaid merch given to you. So I read the book and I mean, I was highlighting, I was underlining, I was posting notes, and I started to think about what kind of mermaid did I want to be? Did I want him to be, oh no, he's always like afraid of water? I didn't want to be that type of mermaid, but I wanted to have like a transformational aspect, much like werewolves, where it would have to do
Mhm.
with the cycle of the moon. And so that's how I developed him, where at least once a month he would have to go to the water and he would have to like, transform so that he doesn't have any issues. So that's how I kind of developed him. And also just kind of a wanderer, a merman who wants to have a home, but then he has this fear of not being able to settle down. But of course, through his love of Lucy, he ends up finding a way. And of course, Freya Grove is perfect for him. It's that liminal zone between, the sand and the sea. And so now he has that home. And so it's just him trying to work every day through his desire, through that kind of pull of the ocean and wanting to want to travel to foreign waters or many waters. So yeah, I love Alex. He's just my emo merman listening to Linkin Park and My Chemical Romance, and just have emotions, which I absolutely love.
We love a soft merman.
Every day, all day.
All day. I just loved it. He like I don't like to pick favorites from my reading, but like Alex was like the main star for me in book one, and then Ursula was like my favorite in book two. I can't help it. I'm Sagittarius. It just happens.
Oh,
But so for those who are a little bit newer to the series or haven't read it yet, there is a kind of contentious like character in book one that becomes the heroine of book two. So um yep. And then we have Kiss and Spell, which just came out. What day did it drop? It was just this month, right?
September 26th.
Yep.
Yes. So it dropped. So it's been a whirlwind. I love readers that are like, I like this book. I enjoy this book because they're like, everyone asks, what are you doing with Ursula? It's Ursula? Oh my goodness, it's Ursula. And so reading Ursula, a lot of people have really like felt like, oh my kid, I got it. I get it. Now I get it. Because a lot of things were left unresolved in Kiss and wishful thinking that were resolved in Kiss and Spell, which made it fun and extremely difficult, right? Because, like, spoiler alert, Ursula was not part of the plan. Second book was supposed to be Callie. But then, yeah, Callie was kind of my back to school. If you ever seen that movie, Roger Dangerfield, I'm like, I've seen it on Channel 11 so many times with my mom, but it was like her going back to school and then her flirting with a fellow classmate and all this stuff. It was going to do that, but it just didn't fit. I was like, oh no. And then, of course, after Ursula's whole moment in book one, my editor, God bless her, she's a wonderful person. She's like, you're going to have to write it. I was like, oh.
You're like,
Listen, I did it to myself. I did it to myself.
Set yourself up. She just saw the path.
Oh yeah, and honestly, that was what made it so tough because I had to start from scratch because I had stuff for Callie to go. I had a whole Pinterest board. Ursula didn't have a Pinterest board, and so I was just like, oh, so trying to think of her character because I knew inside what was going on with her and it was so complicated and why her wish went the way it did. And because of that, it was just like getting it all on paper and trying to find that story that was like, but then once I found it, I was like, okay, this is it. This is working. It's working. I was like, yes. So, oh yeah, Ursula, my beautiful boss witch.
I love that so much. Do you have any like writing like rituals or practices that you use to keep yourself going on days? Are you more chaotic? Always are welcome. I'm just kind of wondering about your process.
My process is pretty much like I feel like I go through these cycles. Like at first, I'm like, oh, this is the greatest book ever. This is amazing. It's great. And then it's like, oh no, let me listen to Phil Collins and lay on the ground and just look. It's like there's a reason why I know all the words to Against All Odds because I play it so much because that's when I'm really stuck where I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I get back into it. My process is I make sure that I have like paper all over the house. There has to be a notebook everywhere around the house. Make sure I have a pen wherever it's possible because there have been times where I'll be laying down and of course you're in that good comfortable spot and then something comes to your head and you're like, I gotta write something down. You write it down and then you're like, great, and then you fall asleep and then in the morning you're like, thank goodness I wrote it down. So I am very much chaotic, controlled chaos. Like I write down everything that I can even though I may not use it. I'm a big fan of finding enough purple ledger pads, if that's the weirdest thing, because then I can see them very clearly.
Okay.
Okay, because it's like if it's purple I know it's good. So then I write it down and then I type it up and then I see how it goes, and many times the story comes to me in dialogue.
Ooh,
yeah, I was just
I
like
like that.
Yeah, the story comes in dialogue. If I'm starting from scratch with a book, index cards.
Okay.
Write down tropes on index cards, and then I have a hole punch where I will punch them, and I'll put them on like a janitor's key ring type
Mhm.
thing. And one day I'm going to bring it with me. People are gonna believe. They're like, no. I said, no, it's real. It's in my.
Yeah, I believe it.
Oh yeah, punch a
I
hole.
love that.
Oh yeah, because that book three, when I started writing, I was writing on index cards because I was like, I need to find the story because I knew Serena's story. Spoiler alert. I know her story. So I was doing book three, trying to get that together. And then I was like, okay, all right, I know where I'm going with this. So y'all, like, you got a little tidbit. So
Just between us here.
just between all of us people. But yeah,
I credit you all when you have to keep like those publishing secrets. I'm like, I don't know how they do
oh yeah, no, that was like, whoo, but it's also
it.
like if you read book two, you know.
You know.
It's like if you read book two, it's like okay. It's like people knew like, oh yeah, I know who the next one is gonna be. I was like, oh yeah, next one's gonna be, so and so. Like, oh yeah. But
Romance writers like to give us the map,
a little bit of map, but I will say it's been working out the index cards because I start writing okay, their needs, their wants, emotional wound, what they're looking for, the setting. I do all that all on index cards. And as I'm going, I start adding things to
Okay.
it. So I have like a thick stack of index cards, and then I start writing. And then once I start writing, I'm like, okay, this is the tone of the book. I also have the element of the book because Lucy is water. She's connected to water. She loves her tea. You have, yeah, you have Ursula. She's an earth witch. She's crystals and plants.
Mhm.
She loves that. And then, of course, book three is going to be about fire. So it's going to be different vibe from the other books. Each book has a different vibe because each book is connected by a different element. And so
I love
going to
that.
be fun. Oh yeah. Book three, I'm just like, ooh.
I'm
I'm
very excited. I'm very excited.
I'm
Yeah.
excited for you guys to read it, honestly, because people were like, so guess it's about what's book three? Do you have a book three? Yes, I have a book three. I'm like, book three.
You do. You're working on it. It's gonna be great. Are the index cards, are they a color or are they just the white ones or does it
Oh,
matter?
they're color coded.
I
They
kind of
are.
thought so.
Oh yeah, I am, like I said, growing up the daughter of a teacher, color coded. Color code because if I don't, the amount I would be lost. Like I said, yellow is book three, white was book two, and then book one it was a mixture, it was multicolored.
Mm.
Like I said, that was my first published book. Like it's just like it's different from writing a book and then writing a publishable book, which you learn very fast, very fast how that goes. But yeah, it's color coded so that I have it. So that's yeah, but my process is like it sounds like all over the place, but it makes sense in my head.
Hey, it's clearly doing the job, so I'm glad. That's great. That sounds like when I would do research, I have a history degree, so I would do research papers and I had index cards
Oh
for my
yeah.
whole paper. And then I'd have the like source like written out in the like proper citation format because I always be like, where is this from and what book did I pull it from? Like, oh, like terrible. So giving me flashbacks. I love
I know
it.
where they got me through graduate school so many times.
Hmm.
And like I'm fortunate that there's dollar stores who have stacks of them, especially when back to school sales. I always stock up. It's like, oh, you have these for a quarter? Yes, give
I
me
will take all of that.
all of them. I'll just have them. I'll hold them. I still have my stack of index cards ready for my next book series, and I'm just like, oh, I can't wait to open them.
It's like that's a little ritual. I love that so much.
Yeah.
Oh, when I was in, was it high school? Yeah, I think I was a freshman in high school, and that Christina Aguilera first album dropped, and the radio station had a contest where if you filled out index cards with like your name, your school's name, and like some other, you had to write in each corner, and whoever filled out the most index cards got like a performance by Christina Aguilera at their high school. And I just remember we would all be sitting there filling out index cards through every period, and there was no index cards to be found in like the southeastern portion of Wisconsin. And Franklin High School won, and I'm still mad about it.
Oh,
Anyway.
I love it. I love that. I remember those days. Entering contest. I'm gonna win. And then it's
We're
like,
gonna win, and it's like, oh, foiled, but that's okay. um, I really enjoy that your series is like paranormal, but it's like a warm hug. Like, there's clearly stuff going on that adds like angst and ennui and drama, but it's not like scary and like bleh, and like is that your like go-to aesthetic like personally, or do you enjoy like any like creepy horror like in your, or do you lean in a different way in like your pleasure reading or viewing?
good question. So for me, I always love coziness. Like, give me like yesterday, I had to put back a Lush throw blanket. I was just like, do I need another throw blanket with Hello Kitty on it? No. Do I want
Maybe
it?
though.
Yes, exactly. And I'm like, I am so happy. It's like, oh, it did below 60 degrees weather. I love it so much. So I think that for me, cozy has always been like my go-to vibe, and just like soft like vibes. Like, I'm a sucker for an aesthetic. I love it. I love it. It's like, oh, a blanket aesthetic, crochet aesthetic, sign me up. That's it. But then the things that I read vary. Like, I am
Okay.
like I've said before, I am give me a true crime podcast, give me a podcast about scammers. I will listen to it and just like really get into like those type of things. But I don't, no, nothing too dark, nothing too
Okay.
really dark, just like, the silly crimes. I know there's one book I was listening to, the audiobook was called Rogues, and there was like one person in there who was like, yeah, I was enjoying that. And but one guy who he frauded all these people for like wine. He made fancy wine. He's like, oh, this wine bottle belonged to Thomas Jefferson. And they're like, this is impossible. It's written with laser, not chisel. And they're like, I don't know.
You
And so
didn't see that.
right? And so I love like nonfiction books. I'm getting really into like memoir.
Okay.
So that's what a kind of I ingest. But for me, it's always going to be a nice soft story, because one, you have to sit in that world, you have to write in that world, you have to stay in that world from anywhere between 6 months to a year. And to write, God bless horror writers, like, because right now I'm having a moment with Grady Hendrix. My husband was listening to How to Sell a Haunted House, and I was just sitting around, and then I heard like one line, and I was like, I was like, what was that?
It's like,
Who is this? And so, I mean, we listened to the book together. It's amazing. So,
really? Okay, good to know.
oh yeah, I'm very much like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, I'm such a scaredy cat. Oh, like, I am. I'm not good with horror films, but when it comes to like nonfiction, true crime, like white collar crime, then I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm interested in that. But
Mhm.
I,
Yeah, I had a patron who was looking for like true crime stuff, but not the unaliving
yes,
type stuff. And the book we settled on was called like The Feather Thief. And it's about like the person who like defrauded that museum of all their like fancy bird feathers to make fishing lures,
I've
because
heard
that's
about.
like a huge like niche thing. And I was like, this is wild. And that book is amazing, by the way, but she was really excited about it. And because it's not a harmless crime, but no one's getting like physically,
Yeah,
like, and it
yeah,
was good how they
yeah.
caught him too. It was like,
Same with maple syrup, like the maple syrup crimes up in Canada. Yes, I was just
stop,
like,
I'm gonna write that down.
oh yeah. So there's a podcast I listen to. It's called Scam Influencers.
Mm.
And they had, yes, I see you nodding your head, Miss Brittany. Yes, they had where they were talking about how they were basically stealing millions of dollars of maple syrup from the government. And it's like, and I mean, the way they were doing it, I was like, this is some Martin Scorsese type stuff going on here. What? I'm here for it. Oh, yeah, they were doing it. And so that was it.
That's
I
amazing.
kind of fell off from scam influencers, but I might have to go back in.
For the maple syrup, yeah.
Recently, the last couple of episodes have been pretty good because there's one they were talking about like art heist. And so I haven't listened to it yet, but I listened to the maple syrup one. I was just like, tell me more. I mean, all the stuff with Sam Bankman-Fried. Oh my gosh. It's just like, you gave this man $1 billion. And I'm like,
It's like the audacity, and you're like,
but it's a confidence game. That's another book that I was listening to. And Hype, the book Hype, that was a very good book where they talk about how the rise of social media has led to an increase in scams because it's confidence. If you say like, I deserve $1 million, and then enough people say like, he deserves $1 million, and it's just like, well, who can we not give him $1 million? And so, like, I know I've probably said this multiple times, but that narrative fascinates me. It really does. Because I'm like, what story do you have to tell to get that trust and get that?
Right. Oh, that's wild. I can't remember the title now, but I read one that made me feel better in a way, and it was about telegraphs and how people would run scams over the telegraphs when that was like a new technology. And it's like since the dawn of any invention that like connects people through a distance, right? Or like
I mean,
people are running scams. They would like wire people to be like, "Dear Sally, you need to wire me $2,000 because I'm in jail." And like, how would you know?
Yeah, you by the time you check, time's passed, and then you're like, oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
Scanning people's uniform and clay tablets. At this point, you're like, wow.
Right? You're like, humans are gonna human, I guess.
They are like
very good. Well, speaking of book recommendations, why don't we pivot over to ours? So we asked Celestine to pick out some romance recommendations. If Brittany, if you want to bring up the slides, and then so if you didn't see them yet, these are Celestine Martin's books, and then here are your recs. So why did you choose these three for us today?
Okay, so I was thinking about what I've read in the last couple of months and the ones that I really enjoyed and that stood out to me. The Dating Playbook, I enjoyed it for the relationship between the two main characters. Like this woman who's having financial trouble. She's trying to start her business. She's trying to do things on her own, and her own kind of struggles to like becoming a fully formed human, but she's loyal, she's sweet, hardworking, and then she works with a football player who is trying to get off the injured reserve list. And so the two of them connect on this really deep and wonderful level. And also it has to like, how does someone deal with grief in the aftermath of losing people? So I love that book so much. It really made a big impact on me. Farrah Rashan's also an amazing human being, and so I will always recommend her book. Zora books, her Happily Ever After by Taj McCoy. Oh my gosh, I devoured this book.
Is it a love triangle?
Yes, it is a love.
Okay, I was hoping so.
Honestly, it is one of the best written love triangles, because for like a good 75% of the book, I'm like, if she picks so and so, I'm gonna throw my phone. But the way she makes it happen, and the way she makes it where it's like it's not obvious who she's going to end up with until the end. And also the relationship she has with her grandma and her friends and the book community that she creates. I absolutely loved it. Like, I actually went on Twitter and I was just like, if you haven't checked out this book, you need to do so. And I added the author because, readers, I was a reader before I was a writer.
So you know how it works.
I love this book so much. And after I read it, I was like, oh, that was a satisfying read. So it was giving me major cozy fall vibes. with
It's
her book.
beautiful. Yeah,
The
this one landed on my desk because I get sent stuff once in a while because I'm like, people know that I enjoy it a lot. A
yeah,
lot.
I think you'll enjoy it, honestly.
Yeah, so I was like, yay, thank you. I was excited when you had it on your list because I already had it on my desk. Yay. Okay.
I love when plan comes together. The Only Purple House in Town by Anna Guire. I love this book for just the cozy vibes. Also the found family. And there's a twist in there that I didn't expect, but then it makes sense because I had to go back and reread the book. So because I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, all right, let me read it again. I was like, oh, okay. Cool. And so I know it's a spinoff from her Fix It Wishes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so I was just like, so it's in that same world, but I would love if, because there's another character in there, because now I'm doing the same thing that people were doing to me. There's a character in there that I hope gets their own book. So I thought I really enjoyed it. And I was just on a panel with Anna Guire and I was just like, oh, I just read her book. So I enjoyed it. So it was a very nice found family, light paranormal. There's magical beings, but it's really the connection, it feels like a Thanksgiving dinner,
Oh, yes.
yeah, that's how I feel like this book feels. It feels like a Thanksgiving dinner where you have like this raucousness and you have this house full of just kind of misfits who have come be in the safe space. So that's what I enjoyed about it.
I will add that one right away. She writes like so widely too. I really liked her. She
Yeah.
has a book called Strange Love that is about a human who like falls in love with like an alien.
Yes,
And it
I've
was like delightful and
heard
it's
that.
hard to explain unless you've read it. And I know you have either heard of it or read it. And it's just like, how did she do that? I don't know. It works.
Oh yeah, she was just talking about that. She was like, "Oh, that's my little book that could," and I was just like, "Now I have to go rent it." So I have to go.
Yeah, it's bonkers, and I
I
loved
love
it.
bonkers. I love language.
We'd love to see it. All right. Well, thank you so much. And then Brittany and I also chose some things. So Brittany, why don't you go ahead and share what you chose?
Okay. So I am a romance novice. So I was just using my reader advisory hat to make some of my selections, like Full Moon Over Freedom. It's a story about two childhood friends, childhood sweethearts. The young lady, she just came back to Kansas. The title or the explanation says she used to be the former perfect wife and mother. So now she has to go back home. There's a little magical element to it. And it's part of a series, so I'm kind of excited to take a look at it. But it looks cute, a little romance and elemental what magic there. And the other Black Girl has been on my to read list since it came out. So the story of a young woman working in publishing as an assistant, wants to do more things. She's the only Black girl at the time, and then a new Black girl gets hired, but then everything kind of goes haywire. So Hulu just made it into a show, but I'm really interested to read the book first, because they said that the show is a little bit too much surreal, like magic to it, or like really surreal, and the book's a little better. But sometimes that happens. So in the Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, I haven't read it, but it is on my to read list. And I kind of picked it cute cover, and I thought it fits in with Halloween and everything. So those are my picks.
I've read the first one in the Full Moon Over Freedom
Mhm.
series, and it was really good. It was spicy, and like she kind of like Celestine does with her books with the history of like the place. Like I feel like Angelina M. Lopez kind of does the same amount of like work with the research. So if you like that, I think it's a good pivot over. And then I'm gonna get those other two because they sound great. All right, I can go next.
Yep.
Awesome. So I also picked three. I'm actually gonna start the middle one. I just checked out, so I haven't actually read that one yet. And it is a young adult romance, but it hit the shelf here and I was like, I must read this because that cover is absolutely adorable. And I'm always looking for like fall books that aren't spooky because a lot of people enjoy like the fall cozy, but they don't want the spooky or paranormal. And this one is just a really cute YA story about two frenemies that have to plan their fall formal together, and he's her nemesis. And then, of course, sparks fly while they're doing that. And um, yeah, it just looked really cute. And I haven't read a YA in a second, and I thought this would be a good one to try. Um, the Nora Roberts one, I'm a huge Nora Roberts fan since forever, and this is finally, I'm just excited. She's been kind of leaning into like the more fantasy paranormal trilogies where you have to
Mhm.
read all of them to get the full story. This one felt more classic Nora with a haunted main mansion that's, ceded over to a descendant of this family. And it was actually pretty spooky because the house is haunted and some of the ghosts aren't very nice. And she's kind of contending with the house being like alive. And also, I wanted to live there because the good ghost that she's friends with will like make the bed and start the fire and like clean the kitchen and like be helpful. And I was like, oh, that sounds very lovely. I would like that very much. It's not out quite yet, but we do have it on order in the catalog. And then if you are a romance newbie, I can't say enough nice things about this anthology called Even If the Sky is Falling. So it takes kind of a classic like action movie trope, like what if the world is coming to the end? And it says there's this meteor shower and it might end the world. So what would you do if it was the end of the world? And then these 6 authors all contributed a unique romance story set within this premise. So they all are in the same world, but it's different couples for each story. And it's a really great way to meet writers if you're looking to kind of expand how many romance authors you're reading. And I like every single author that is in this anthology. So I haven't read all of them yet, but I really especially liked Farah Heron's and Cherish Reed's story and Denise Williams. So super fun. Mhm.
One other suggestion, if you like The Fall of Whit Rivera, Talia Hibbert. I don't know if you read it or not, but Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute kind of reminds me of that one. It's
Okay.
they used to be best friends, but now they're enemies, and then they had to go on this like trip, I believe, and then somehow it kind of some sparks fly. It's a YA romance as well, so it's on my Goodreads list as well.
Mhm. I have read her adult, but I haven't read
Yeah,
that one yet. So
I
thank
want
you for
to.
reminding me because it's
Yeah, I
sounds
definitely
really
want to
good.
read that trilogy as well.
Yeah, I love the Brown sisters. They're great. Yay. All right, those are my picks. And then if we just want to go forward one more slide, I just want to let everyone know that tomorrow we'll be chatting with special guest Chuck Tingle. You can still register for that. It's on Zoom at 6 p.m. as well. We'll include a registration link with the follow-up email, or you can go to mpl.org to register. And then we can take the slides down. And it looks like we have a question before we wrap up this evening.
I typed in an answer, but
Oh, did you?
say because since you were sharing our thing, I was like, oh, there's a question.
Yay.
Kelly, thank you for the question. Yes, she said that in wishful thinking. She's like, I noticed that, your characters are always drinking tea and you're always like having tea, especially iced tea. I'm like, is that a New Jersey thing or a family thing? It's a family thing. Like that's one of the things that I share with my family. We love tea. We're tea drinkers. Like we all like my tea cabinet is a mess. like so adding that tea aspect and also the fact that I wanted that to be kind of like a bonding experience because I didn't want them to always be like, oh, let's go get a drink, right? I
Mhm.
wanted them to say, okay, listen, I'm gonna make you a cup of tea. We're gonna figure this out, right? That's kind of their way of saying I love you by making them a cup of tea. Like I want to take care of you. Here's a cup of tea. Like, oh, are you, what's up? I want to warm you up. You're not cold. You're fine. Is it hot outside? Okay, I'll make you a cup of iced tea. All right, we're going to figure this out. So that's their way of saying that they love each other without necessarily saying it. So they're going to I'll make you a cup of tea. Don't worry about it. So that was just kind of a little nod, because let's connect them, because then they get it from their grandmother. Same thing. She's like, all right, I'll make you a cup of tea. All right, sit down, tell me what's going on. I got some cookies baking. Let's figure this out. So that's why they always drink tea. It's a little like connection, the way they show each other love and affection. So yeah.
Maybe we should have wishful thinking and blends of tea.
There is a tea shop in Seattle that once these books are done, I will tap the owner. I already have it in my head. I would love to, but I gotta make sure that it's like, all right, how much would it cost to do like a tea blend? And I'll pay you this.
Yes.
Be kind of like a thank you to the readers. Like, here's the special tea blend inspired by, yay, order it from this place. I think that would be cool. But then it's also, there's so many types of tea blends, because I did study abroad in Africa and I went to Kenya. And Kenya, apparently, after was India and Sri Lanka, they're the third biggest distributor of tea. Their tea stronger than coffee. Oh, I came home with like a box of tea, and it was wonderful. I still have yet to have anything as good. It's really good. But
that sounds great.
Yeah.
Make you feel alive.
Oh yeah. So, oh my gosh, I got a cup of tea. I was like, you know, caffeine is in here. I was like, there's no caffeine in tea. I'm like, no, there was that.
Definitely was. Okay. As we wrap up, where can everyone follow you? Where's the best place for everybody to either sign up for your newsletter or just make sure that they keep abreast of everything you have going on?
Best for me is going to be my Instagram, Celestine Martin author. That's my handle. I am occasionally on Twitter, but that's probably gonna taper off a little bit. I'm Jelly Bean Ray at Twitter or X or whatever it's called now.
Twitter.
Also, exactly, my website where I send at this point, it's seasonal newsletter. My seasonal newsletter. CelestineMartin.com. I will be updating it sometime this week. I'll be updating it with a couple of upcoming events. And so, yeah, that's where y'all can find me.
Any other book 3 dates or tentative plans to see a cover or anything happening that you can share, or is that still?
It's like, listen, my wonderful cover artist is working on it right now. We're on touch on Instagram. Very excited to see it. So we should be hearing something about in the spring. No,
okay,
it's for the spring, but so far it's gonna be good. It's going to wrap up some things. No loose ends. I don't think so. No loose ends, but it's wrapping it up. So I think it's gonna be good. But yes.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you again so much for your time. I'm always so grateful to our authors who get to share their time with us, Hard Hands. And yeah, I'll pester you for your mailing address so we can send you a proper thank you card in the mail. So just watch for that because I have to do that. Mom taught me. And best of luck and for the remainder of your book tour, for your new book, and show us your books one more time before we say goodnight.
I would be honored.
Yay! And Kiss and Spell. You can get them at your local bookstore or here at the library. And yeah, thank you again, and thank you everyone for watching. We really appreciate you attending our public library events. It shows everyone here that you want us to keep hosting these, and we'll send you a follow-up email in a day or two with just details, all the books we talked about, and where you can get them, along with where you can follow Celestine. All right. Well, thank you. I hope you get to rest the rest of this evening, and thank you, Brittany, my awesome co-host, and we'll see you next time.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye.